Okay, this is for question number 4. We are skipping question number 3 because that one has structure in it. Question number 4, the format is the same. You have to enter your 7-digit student ID, and it's asking you to show the actual output of this program. This one is kind of similar to the first one because we have a subroutine call to X, and then X calls G. So the first thing is, we need to figure out, okay, what is this going to do? The recursion is in X itself, because you can see that X eventually, or in certain cases, will call itself. G, on the other hand, is not recursive. This is subroutine G. So it's best to analyze what subroutine G is actually doing. Function G returns an integer. It has 2 local variables. One is ch, one is r. The first thing we do is we see if we actually read a character. If we do, then we check whether that character is within the range of 0 to 9. If it is within 0 to 9, then it will set the local variable r to the value of the digit by subtracting the ASCII code of 0, the digit 0, from the character. If not, it's going to specify -1 in r and then return r in either case. In other words, G is really just reading a digit, or attempts to read a digit and then return the value of the digit. If it could not read anything, or it read something that is not a digit, it returns -1. Alright, so given that in function X, it is a little bit easier to analyze now, because now we can see that J is just reading in a digit from the student ID. And if we successfully read a student ID, which is going to be the then branch, then it will determine whether it is going to it will determine which branch to go to based on whether the number or the digit is odd or even. If it is even, then it's going to go for the then case. If it is odd, then it goes for the else case. But there is a trick in this program. The trick is, for even numbers, it will print J then, and then it will do the recursion. For odd numbers, it will do the reverse. It will do the recursion before it prints J else. So we have to be careful with this part here. Alright, so let's go ahead and duplicate the student ID and figure out what it is going to do. Alright, so the first digit reading in is a 1, and because it's reading in a 1, it is an odd number, so it's going to do the rest. It would call itself first, it will call X first, and then it will say J else, and it will print the actual value of the digit, which is 1. The curly braces are really not a part of the output, but I'm using this to help group which portion of the output is which portion. So this is the recursive call. The recursive call is going to read 4 as the next one, and as a result it's going to print J then equals to 4, and then it will do the recursion. After the 4 comes 3. 3 is an odd number, and it's going to do the recursion first, and then it will print J else equals to 3. After the 3 is 8, which is an even number. It's going to print J then equals 8, and then do the recursion. After the 8 is 2, which is also an even number, so it prints J then equals 2, and then it will do the recursion. And then it reads 9, which is an odd number, which means it's going to do the recursion, and then prints J else equals 9. And then it's going to print, and then it will read 4, so it will print J then equals 4, and then it will do the recursion. But that recursion is going to terminate. There's nothing to print because it is going to read the line feed character. So this is the arrangement of the recursion. So the actual output is going to be pretty much the same thing, but with all the curly braces removed, because I just used the curly braces to indicate level of recursion. So after removing all the curly braces, this is acceptable as an answer, but the actual answer does not have all this indentation. So I'm going to remove all the indentation, and this is the actual output of this question. Let's go straight to question number 6. Question number 6 asks you to implement the code of string char. Now, string char is a function that returns a pointer to the first occurrence of a character C in string S, and these two are the names of the parameters. But furthermore, the string char function returns a pointer to the matched character in S, or it returns 0, which is a null pointer, if the character is not found. The terminating null byte is considered part of the string, so that if C is specified as 0, so if the character to be found is the null character, the function does return a pointer to the terminator. So in question number 6, there's no restriction, which means you are free to implement this in any way, and most people would do it non-recursively. So the non-recursive version of string char is going to look like this. Okay. So what we need to do is to look for it. There are several ways to look at this. You can use an array, concept of an array. You can also use the concept of a pointer. So I'm just going to use the concept of a pointer. It goes like this. We basically say we are going to specify a loop here, okay, and there may be something to do within the body of the loop. To stay in the loop, we basically have to meet two conditions. The first condition is we are not seeing the end of the string just yet, okay, and the second condition is what S is pointing to is also not what we're looking for, so we have to compare the string S with the character that we're looking for. If both of these conditions are satisfied, then we are going to actually I have to correct myself, because I have to flip these two conditions, because we first check to see if the character pointed to by S is the same as the character that we are looking for, because we can be looking for the null character. So in general, what this is right now is, if S is pointing to a character that is not what we are looking for, and we are not at the end of the string, then we'll do the following. Now, we just increment S here because S is a pointer. So if we increment S, it will now point to the next character of this array. And if we exit the loop, there are only two reasons to get out of this loop. One is we found the character, and the second one is we did not find the character. So in this case, we have to return now we have to be careful, because S can be pointing to a null character, and we can be looking for a null character. So we have to be careful to handle that particular condition. So the first thing we need to do is to check. The only thing we need to do is to return whether, well, to use this as a condition, okay, to see if S is pointing to a character that is the same as what we are looking for. If it is different, then we are going to return 0 as a null pointer, and if it is the same, which is the else of the ternary operator, we just return S itself. So this is one way to do it in using an iteration. And then the other questions, question number 7, is to do it using recursion, using a conditional statement. Okay, so to do this using a conditional statement, but using the same logic, is not too bad, because what we do is we just turn this into a conditional statement. So instead of a loop, we have a conditional statement, and the conditional statement is going to specify the same condition. So if what S is pointing to is not the character that we're looking for, and we are not at the end of the string just yet, then we perform a recursion, And in the recursion, we basically say, so here's the result. So in this case, the result is basically whatever the recursion is going to return, which is string char. And it is s plus 1 because we don't want the next invocation to use the same character again, so we wanted to say use the next character, and s plus 1, which is pointer arithmetics, is going to specify the address of the next character in the same array. But we are looking for the same character, so C is still the same. Now, what about the else part here? Now, the else part is a little bit tricky because there can be two ways to get to the else part. The first one is when the character pointed to by s is the same as the character that we're looking for. And then the second one is that is not the case, but we are at the end of the string. So in this case, we are going to borrow the condition that we saw earlier to see if the character pointed to by s is the same as the one that we are looking for, or not the same in this case. If they're not the same, we return a 0. If they are in fact the same, then we return the pointer itself. And the last thing we have to do is actually to do the return statement so that we can utilize result. The next question, which is R8, question number 8, is redo question number 7, but this time do it with recursion and a single return statement. Alright, so this one requires you to make use of a ternary operator to combine the conditional statement and the return statement. So basically we don't need result anymore. We just use this condition to determine whether we are going to return the value of the next invocation, or whether we are returning based on or whether we are returning just s in this case, because the only I will show you this. Okay, so we will first determine is s pointing to the character that we are not looking for, and s is pointing to a non-null character. If that is the case, we are going to simply defer the return value to the next invocation, which is going to look at the next character and comparing that to start with the next character, but looking for the same character that we have been looking for. The else case is the one that is a little bit tricky because we have to say, okay, but there are two reasons to get here, because the first one is s is not pointing to the character that we are looking for. So in that case, we have to return a null pointer. Otherwise, we have to return the pointer itself, which is actually pointing to the character that we are looking for. So that is how we specify the else of the outer ternary expression. So we have two ternary expressions here. One is nested within the other one. All right. So this is the solution to the practice exam. I'm hoping that this may prove to be helpful to you. The two questions that I have crossed out because they are related to structures, I will replace those with questions that do not have to do with structures, but they can potentially still have array content in it. Alright, so I hope this helps you prepare for your own final exam, and don't forget this is open book and open notes, so you can definitely bring along anything that is handwritten or printed prior to the test.